Hi, you all, and welcome back to CHD 210, Educating Exceptional Children. This week, we're going to be talking about Chapter 7, Managing Arrival, Departure, and Other Transitions. Arrival and departure mark the beginning and the end of a center-based day. Thus, they represent two very major transitions of the day. For children with special needs, these two transitions may pose significant challenges. In addition, transitions from one activity to another that occur within the daily routine of the center-based program may also present difficulties for all young children. It is estimated that about 1/3 of the time in preschool is spent going from one activity to another. This chapter will suggest strategies for supporting children with challenges related to transitions and ideas for maximizing the learning potential of these daily events. So for many children in the early childhood center, being in school is just a new experience. And even for those who have been attending school, they may find the hustle and bustle, the rapid pace, the noise level, the large number of children in a child care center or preschool program very different and at times very overwhelming. They might need extra time to possibly warm up and warm up to the day or warm up to the children or the teacher. In addition, children may also take an unusually long time each morning to settle into their routine. One of the problems is sometimes even when arrival is a routine event, like they're used to it, they've been doing it for quite some time, it can still feel like a new experience for them, okay, even though they've been doing it over and over and over again. So we can't really take that piece of it for granted, okay? It's kind of like a change in their environment, so to speak, when they're familiar with it, but traveling to the center, entering the room, which contains a number of very active children, can create that uneasiness amongst children. Also, separation is a major hurdle for young children with special needs as well. So we can see how the arrival time will need to be very carefully planned in order to try to prevent some of these types of things from happening. So there's lots of learning opportunities that can occur during arrival. We can touch base with children's families. We can have one-on-one contact with the children when we're welcoming them into the center. There are self-help skills that can be taught, emergent literacy skills that can be taught, and will also create confidence and security in the children as they begin to become more and more independent in these activities. So let's talk about using strategies. What kind of strategies can we use during arrival time? Although we cannot rush the developmental milestone of acceptance of separation, we can talk about some strategies that are going to help these transitions to become a bit more smooth. Okay, so first things first, we want to make sure that we keep our arrival routine fairly consistent. Consistent routines are going to help ease the stress of a transition. That's with children with special needs and also just your typically developing children. When people know what to expect next, it's going to be a bit more seamless, okay? So we want to make sure that we try to maintain a regular pattern for arrival, like the child enters the building, the teacher greets them, greets the family, greets the child. Then they guide the child over to find their cubby where they'll take off their jacket, place their things in their cubby. And then the teacher helps that child transition on into the classroom into an activity. Whatever it might be. We're going to also make sure that we welcome children at eye level. Whenever it's possible, it's best to speak to young children at eye level. This approach is even more crucial when communicating with children who have special needs. It is easier for children to focus on your face and process what you're saying when you're looking at them in the eye. And for children with vision or hearing loss, eye-level communication increases the intensity of the signal because they're a little bit closer. Like we said, speaking with parents and that primary caregiver is so important. Arrival is also an easy time to work on independence. So that's where the self-help skills are going to come into play. Taking off a jacket, finding the right cubby, placing the backpack in the cubby. Those are things that children can readily learn if they're consistent and they have some support. Okay. Arrival is also an easy time to reinforce name recognition or emergent literacy. Cubbies can be clearly marked with the children's names. Photos of the child can even be placed beside their name, so that they can encourage the children to find their own name. So let's talk about departure. We talked a little bit about arrival. So what about departure? Departure is another significant transition in a daycare center. For most children, departure is not nearly as stressful as the arrival because it usually comes with being reunited with their family member or their caregiver, okay, instead of being separated from them. However, it's still a good idea to try to plan some routines as much as you can. Obviously, it's not, we don't really have, it's hard to be consistent at the end of the day, and that's because families pick up their children at different times. However, it's still, like I said, a really good idea to try to have as much of a routine as you possibly can. One of the problems that we see with departure is that it's hard to build a rapport with family when the children are bus riders. Okay, so if they are coming to school on the bus or being picked up on the bus, you never even have the opportunity to meet with their parent. So building that rapport with that family is going to be especially difficult if that is the case. So this is a time, if that is the case, where you're going to have to step up and come up with some other ideas in order to meet with that family, okay? You might have a communication log or a communication notebook or book where you write a note to the parent, it goes home in the child's backpack, and then it comes back and they can write back to you. So that would be one way to keep the line of communication open. Frequent phone calls, texting, emailing are also ways to build rapport. But I'm going to tell you, I find more and more that people don't check their email nearly as frequently as they used to. And I think it's because people's emails are all getting filled up with junk. So don't rely so heavily on sending an email and thinking that if that's your only means of communication. I would really think that doing the notebook, the communication notebook, or the take-home folder, sending a text message, but be careful. Don't ever send anything in a text message that you don't want someone else to read. Okay, so if it's something that you want to point out that's specific about the child that might not be so great, don't put it in a text message, okay? All right, so what about some other transitions? Transitions occur throughout the day. As we stated, the most major transitions are those arrival and departure ones. However, even though they're smaller in magnitude, but not in quantity, other transitions challenge continue to occur throughout the day. Simply moving from one activity to another can be difficult and stressful for some children. So just moving about in the classroom can be from one activity to another, can pose a lot of stress and be difficult for children. So when we establish routines, here again, we're going back to that key word of a routine, we can see that we can kind of keep these challenges to a minimum. So one of the things that we have found is, why is moving from circle time to center time, or center time back to circle time, why does that pose a challenge for children? Well, here's why. Here's 5 reasons why. First of all, it requires ending, and what child ever likes to quit something they enjoy? Very few of them, right? So it requires ending an activity when some of those children have just gotten settled in and they're just gotten engaged in building with those blocks, and then you ring the bell or you sing the song and tell them it's time to end, okay? Requires refocusing, which may be difficult for some children. It introduces a slight bit of ambiguity and often reduces that sense of predictability. Okay, so they can't really necessarily predict what's going to happen next. Okay, here again, it kind of goes into the net number 4. Some children may become fearful if they aren't exactly sure what's going to happen next. And then the 5th one has a lot to do with when we transition from activity to activity, the noise level increases. There's a lot of bustling, a lot of moving about in the classroom. And so children who are hypersensitive to noise and touch may feel a bit out of control during this time. So there are some here again, just like there were some learning opportunities with arrival, here are some learning opportunities during transitions. Learning happens all day long, including during the transitions. So we need to make sure, because we already learned at the beginning that children spend 1/3 of their day transitioning. So if we're spending 1/3 of our instructional day transitioning, we need to make sure that they're learning something during those transitions, okay? So when children don't know what to expect, challenging behaviors may result. So here again, those routines, routine, do things the same way. So what are we learning? What are some of the things that we learn are 1 to 2 step directions, following complex directions. And complex directions would be things like in a sequence, okay? Matching, sorting, and classifying toys or materials. This transition gives children an opportunity and responsibility to take care of the classroom. They have to learn to wait, take turns, cooperate with their friend. So these are all skills that we can learn during these transitions throughout the day. So careful planning for transitions can significantly reduce challenges that may arise for any children. And so before you are just some suggestions for successful transition strategies. Number 1, give a 5-minute warning. Tell them. Some children with special needs might not attend to a general statement given by the teacher or to the whole class, okay? So you may have to go up to them and get their attention, but tell them, all right, we've got 5 more minutes. Just giving that 5-minute warning, it lets them know what's coming, okay? Use a clear signal. Ring a bell, sound a chime, something that lets them know, okay, it's time to clean up, or we're about to move to the next thing. Sing a song. A lot of people use this, like clean up, sing that song, that cleanup song, lets them know it's time to get going. Sometimes those specific sequence of events, like doing things like here again in a routine the same exact way. Using multiple cues and redundancy. One of those things might be, okay, you're the teacher. You're wanting them to move from center time to circle time. So you're just going to move to the area where you want the children to go. So you would just move over to your rug and begin to talk very quietly. Okay, and when you do, the children are watching what's happening. And so you're giving them multiple cues. You're moving there and you're talking. Okay, so that's a multiple cue, and you're saying it over and over, and it's redundant. It's kind of sending the same message. Here again, we want to make sure that we're being consistent. And in some cases, for some children, especially children who have multiple disabilities, using a tactile cue, like a visual cue, will help them. So let's say it's time for a time when you're going to eat. So maybe breakfast, snack, lunch. You might hold up some kind of utensil, okay, which gives them that tactile, that visual clue. Hey, we're about to go do lunch. A lot of times these transitions to me are especially helpful, because one of the times when we see children kind of get out of control, lose control, these challenging behaviors occur, is because they're just being rushed to leave an activity. And that's a very difficult situation for a lot of children with special needs, when they feel like they're in a rush and they're out of control. So these transition cues will allow them to know the transition is coming and maybe not feel quite so rushed. Okay, well, that ends us for this week. And thanks for joining me for Chapter 7. And I will see you next week.